lecture series. In this, I'm going to cover the mistakes we generally make while speed reading others. Basically, perceptual errors are mistakes or biases in how we perceive or interpret information from the environment. So, as you can see in this picture, there are two females, one the modern one and another the traditional one. So seeing the appearance of the first one, we perceive it a modern, and we may quick if you say that speed reading this person, we will say that she has no idea about cooking because she seems to be a party person completely. And the second one, because she is wearing a sari and she has put a bindi as well, so she is a traditional, so she can be a better mother in future, or she seems to be homely, or but at the same time she may be having no idea about car driving. So this is based on the appearance of the or the first impression. We are just perceiving that she is modern, so she has no idea about cooking, and she is traditional, so she has no idea about driving. So this is how we perceive things quickly in day-to-day life. So these are called perceptual errors. So the context of the presentation includes the meaning of perceptual errors, followed by the types of perceptual errors, where we are going to cover the fundamental errors, self-serving bias, then selective perception, another interesting thing which we see in interview, that is contrast effect, then stereotyping, then halo effect. So these are the perceptual error that we are going to cover in the upcoming slides. Perceptual errors are basically the mistakes or biases that occur when we perceive or interpret information in an accurate way from our environment. Or it can be the misunderstandings or the misinterpretations that happen when we see, hear, experience something, leading us to form inaccurate conclusions or judgments about the world around us. In other way, we can say that these errors can occur due to various factors. For example, our past experience, like we have some negative past experience or positive past experience about someone, so that at the time of perceiving that person or place, we are going to be biased. Then cultural background. As I told you earlier, the culture plays a major role. For example, in one culture, what is liked cannot be liked in other culture. Then the third factor which is causing this is cognitive biases. So on the basis of these three things, past experience, cultural background, and cognitive bias, we tend to misinterpret or misunderstand the things which are happening and the information what we are taking from our sensory organs. So this is how we perceive things in a wrong way, that is causing perceptual errors. Now let's talk about the errors while we perceive things. This is the one of the most important topic, because we all are human beings, and as we know, we perceive things on the basis of our reality, not on the basis of the reality itself. So let's talk about the fundamental attribution error, where we are going to talk about like how we make judgments about the behavior of other people, and some most of the times we tend to underestimate the influence of the external factors and overestimate the influence of the internal factors. Then we will talk about the self-serving bias, which is the tendency to attribute people like one's own success to the internal factors and blame the own failures to the external factors. Then selective perception, the tendency to select, interpret what is seen based on one's own interest, background, and likings. Then we'll talk about the contrast effects, which will cover the evaluation of person's characteristics that is affected by the comparison with the other people recently encountered, and somehow we try to compare them. This is something which happens most of the times in the interviews also. Then very nicely every day we make stereotypes. For example, the you know the tendency to judge the someone on the basis of the perception of a group to which that person belongs. Then halo effect, again very important at the time of interview selection. Selection on the basis of the interview, the tendency to draw a general impression about an individual based on the single characteristics. All these 6 perceptual errors are discussed broadly, widely in the upcoming slide with the help of the examples. So now let's talk about the fundamental attribution error. So it's like when we make judgments about the behavior of other people, we tend to underestimate the influence of external factors and overestimate the influence of the internal or personal factors. For example, there is a sales manager. And he is blaming. He is blaming the poor performance of the sales agents to their laziness and less proactiveness rather than the innovative product line introduced by the competitor. So there are two factors, that is internal factors and the external factors. So for example, another example could be Asian managers. There are two different contexts. One is Asian managers and another is Western managers. So what happens is Asian managers are more likely to blame the institutions. Blame the institutions or the whole organization, whereas in Western actually people or the managers observers believe the individual managers should take the blame or the praise. Blame or praise either means they are the individual culture. So maybe this is one of the reasons that why probably US newspapers prominently report the names of the individual executives when firms do poorly, whereas when we talk about the Asian media, they cover how the firm as a whole has failed. So this can be understood with the help of the collectivist and individualistic culture also. There we have this we thing and there we have this I thing. So whenever anything good is happening or bad is happening, the individual manager is taking the blame. Wherever when anything happening, the whole organization will take the blame. It will not be, when if anything good is happening, it will not be, the credit will not be given to the single person, the manager, but credit would be given to all. So this is fundamental attribution error. Now let's talk about the self-serving bias. Individuals, they actually have the tendency to attribute their own success to the internal factors such as ability or effort, while blaming the failures or on the external factors such as bad luck or noisy co-workers. For example, he is Bunty. He is studying, so there could be two chances. One, he came first in the class, and second, he failed in the class. So in both the scenario, if the first thing happened, and so he can say that it happened because I studied a lot. And if the second thing happened, he failed in the class, what he can say, that he can blame the teachers did not the teachers were very bad, they did not teach him nicely. Or he can say that I was not well, that's why it happened. Or he can make some other excuses. Means whenever he is having the success, he is attributing his success to himself, because he got the first position in the class because he studied a lot. But when he failed, he does not want to take the responsibility, and he wants to put all the blame on the teachers or family or whatever, but not to himself. So this is called self-serving bias. Now let's talk about the selective perception. Actually what happens, for example, people who think they are drinking an alcoholic beverages feel intoxicated even if the beverage is non-alcoholic. So what happens is selective perception. In this, it also filters the stimuli that contradict the personal beliefs or cause emotional discomfort. Any characteristic Any characteristic that makes a person, object or incident stand out will increase the probability we will perceive it. Why? Because it is impossible for us to assimilate everything we see. We can take only certain stimuli. Selective perception allows us to speed read others, but not without the risk of drawing the inaccurate picture, because we have some, like, we speed read people based on our own perception, but ultimately what happens, like, most of the times it is right, but like most of the times it is wrong also, because my perception is based on my personal belief system. So there is probability that you might draw an inaccurate picture about the other person, because we see what we love to see. We can draw unwarranted conclusion from an unambiguous situation. So this is the reason that why you more likely to notice the car that you own, because we can't observe anything going on around us, but we engage in the certain selective perceptions. Now let's talk about the next error, that is called halo effect. You must have heard about this term before. So we all have the general ability to make a general impression based on the single characteristic. This happens many a times. For example, on the basis of intelligence, sociability and appearance, we may draw a conclusion that the person is kind or reliable. So it happens in most of the times in interview, where we are seeing someone who is who is nicely dressed and speaking very good English. So we may perceive that person is going to be having like excellent leadership skills, right? But you don't know that how the person is with the teamwork and taking lead with the people. Hmm? So now let's talk about the contrast effect. We will understand with the help of a interview context. This is going to be very interesting, and you all should know, as a behavioral student or a HR student, you all should know how this happens, because it happens with all of us whenever we are going to get evaluated and many people are appearing in the interview. So we say that we don't evaluate a person in isolation, rather than we compare. For example, our reaction is influenced by other persons we have recently encounters. Let's understand it with the help of an example. Uh, let's talk about an interview context. So contrast effect can occur when a candidate is evaluated relative to the others who have just been interviewed. For example, if a particularly strong candidate, see, you can see the attire also, the everything is there, and the candidate was very strong academically and very confident. So the person is just interviewed just before the person, so the expectations of the interview panel will go up, and automatically, without knowing, subconsciously they are going to compare the both the candidates. They are going to compare both the candidates. The second candidate might be judged more harshly, even if the person is well qualified. So uh, the interview panel is unconsciously comparing the two, making the second candidate seem less impressive than the first one. So who is going to get selected? The first one is going to get selected, because he is or she is, the second candidate is judged more harshly, because the first person was exceptionally good. But it does not it does not say that change the reality that the second person was also very good candidate. Now let's talk about the stereotyping. As given in the slide, we judge someone on the basis of their perception of the group to which he belongs. uh, we are using the shortcut called stereotyping. So stereotyping is basically when we say that actually men are not interested in the child care. See, there is a man who is scolding the child or telling something. Then old workers cannot learn new skills. There is an old woman who is working on the laptop. See, and the third thing is Indians are good in maths. So stereotypes can be deeply, powerful to influence the life and death decisions, because these perceptions are really very strong across the globe, and it is very tough to change the perception of people. So these are the references which I have used in making this entire lecture on perception. I hope it is going to benefit you in your studies. With this, I would like to take your leave. Thank you so much.